Today we are going to be talking about how to use Calyrex-Ice Rider in Regulation G. And Calyrex-Ice Rider, guys, is one of the most broken Pokemon in the format. And I know I said that about Cali Shadow in the last video, but just like the other Calyrex, this Pokemon has a lot of good things going for it. Base 100 in HP, 150 in defense, and 130 in special defense. You are not dying easily. In fact, you are sticking around on the field for a long time. You also have base 165 attack stat because Game Freak just said, hey, let's just make this thing even more broken. The one drawback to this Pokemon is it is slow, but it's not a problem because you get to set Trick Room yourself. And we have all established that you just don't die. So you get Trick Room up yourself. You get to go redirection beside it. You can always have a partner that can set Trick Room as well. You get Clear Amulet, once again, a very strong item that is a huge boost to a lot of the restricted Pokemon. We're going to have a Groudon guide coming out as well. You will see Clear Amulet on that Groudon as well. It's just so good because a lot of the times to deal with Calyrex, you would cycle that Incineroar, you would cycle those Intimidates down to parting shots, right? But you can't do that anymore, and Calyrex just is able to get that steamroll going with the As One ability. Once again, Unnerve, no berries, similar to the other Calyrex. Chilling Neigh, however, this time giving you the attack boost as opposed to the special attack boost, which is what you want here. And once again, you get your broken spread move, Ice type, Glacial Lance, 120, 100, hits both targets, feels really strong, and you pair this with high horsepower generally, right? Glacial Lance, the steel types, the fire types like to switch into that. High horsepower likes to hit those steel types, likes to hit those fire types. It just makes sense. Then you have options here. You can go Protect. I think Protect is the most consistent, right? We'll get into actual movesets in a second, but you have options, right? You have other options like Close Combat here. You have other options. You can go Body Press if you really wanted to. I don't love it, right? You have a ton of options with this Pokemon. You get Heavy Slam. You are a pretty heavy Pokemon, so maybe if you're really scared of Flutter Mane, go ahead. But I mean, Glacial Lance 2 shots Flutter Mane anyways. There's really no point, right? You can go Icicle Spear, Loaded Dice if you really wanted to. Please don't do this. Just run Clear Amulet, guys. As funny as that is, please just run Clear Amulet. But other than that, guys, there's a lot of other cool things. But like this is right here by far the most consistent, right? And this is what you're going to see a lot of the time. So with that, let's jump into set 1. And this is going to be Clear Amulet. And once again, it just prevents that Intimidate cycle. They can no longer intimidate you. They can't actually burn you because you're Terra Fire. You now resist the Steel as well. The biggest concern going Terra Fire is like if you're playing Kyogre and Kyogre becomes relevant, big water type damage is still going to hurt you. So maybe you wouldn't be Terraing in that matchup. But getting out of Steel typing is very nice. Right, it just feels really strong. Getting out of the fire weakness as well feels good. Getting out of the steel weakness, getting out of the fire weakness, it feels good overall. It makes a lot of sense. You can't get burned. It just has really good synergy with Calyrex overall. We've discussed Glacial Lance. We've discussed high horsepower. This is the spread you're going to see. You can maybe get away with a Swords Dance. I am featuring that in set 2. But other than that, guys, there's not a lot to say. Your stats are so good, you can just do this and win. Like, think about it. Right, you max your attack because why not? You could maybe drop this down a little bit and bulk up, right? Maybe if you're going to Swords Dance variant, I would recommend that. But right here, there's really zero reason to not just run this. There is zero reason to not run max 4 and just say, I'm going to live things and go crazy. I do not need to invest in speed, which is a massive W for this Pokemon. Don't need to invest in my 150 defense because it's so high. And then I get more value out of investing in HP than I do special defense because it's the lower stat. Now, for specific calcs, maybe certain calcs versus like Astro Barrage, you may want to drop some HP and put it more into special defense to just guarantee certain survivals. I'm going to be honest, I haven't looked into that. And I haven't looked into that just because this set is so good. There's nothing to say that's wrong with this spread. This spread is incredible, right? It just does everything you want it to do. It hits hard, it lives things, and you get to get Trick Room up, you get to get Glacial Lance, and you get to Steamroll. This is the Pokemon. This is what you're doing with this Pokemon. There's really not much else to say. Once again, you could go Close Combat here, but Close Combat, in my opinion, doesn't get the same coverage that you need, and it compromises your bulk a little bit because the Calyrex-Ice, right? You're here to be on the field, right? We've been talking about how good these defensive stats are. I don't love the Close Combat, but it does get a little bit more. It does get knockouts into things like King Gambit, which feels pretty good. I also believe it one-shots Incineroars, which is kind of cool as well. But then you're compromising your bulk. And I mean, maybe it's not, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe you don't, if you get the KOs, you don't care about your bulk anymore, which is definitely an option. right? So I don't hate the concept, but I do think compromising your bulk is a little weird. High horsepower seems to have a little bit better coverage overall. It's the move I would run, and this is the set I would run. Just Clear Amulet, Glacial Lance, high horsepower game. And like I said, guys, there is no reason for you to not run, for you to not run Clear Amulet on this Pokemon. I'm going to go set 2. Once again, this is going to be similar to the Groudons in the format that right now are running Swords Dance, but Swords Dance is really, really strong. You might want Protect. Basically, if you have another way to get Trick Room up reliably, go Swords Dance and Protect. If you don't, and you really want a reliable Trick Room option with like a redirection beside Calyrex, and you want to do it, if you want to solo this with Calyrex, throw in a Moongus, have a Calyrex, redirect Trick Room, and then click Swords Dance the next turn as you Spore something, this is probably the set for you, right? Nothing really changes here. Once again, this is just too good to not use, right? You can actually go a little bit faster now depending on if you wanted speed stats or not. Maybe you want to go a little bit of a faster horse. Once again, I will showcase that. I will go Adamant, right? And I will say no Trick Room. I'll put Protect here. And basically, you can do whatever you want. And when I do these guides, guys, what I want to point out is I give you 3 separate sets, or I call them sets, but they're really just concepts. You can merge the concept of having a little bit more speed into set 1 just fine. I wouldn't recommend it because I think hard Trick Room on Calyrex is incredible, but you can play around with these sets, right? You can mix and match what feels good for you, right? Like maybe you want Swords Dance on this set instead of Protect or instead of Trick Room, right? I'm just trying to feature different things, right? Here you're going to say Terra Grass. Terra Grass is a little weird. I don't really want to get spored by a Moongus. I don't love Terra Grass on this Pokemon. I mean, you're keeping your fire weakness. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But getting out of that Amoonguss, because Amoonguss is something in Trick Room that is trying to break your Calyrex, that is trying to put you to sleep and buy your opponent turns to get out of Trick Room. So if you're Terra Grass, they can't do that versus you anymore, and it feels pretty strong in that regard. However, I think Fire just seems to be a little bit more consistent. You're hitting Amoonguss anyways with Glacial Lance, right? Eventually you're going to wake up, right? If you can play around Spore the other way, maybe you have Fake Out beside this, right? Fake Out maybe a Misty Terrain, something along those lines, or even a Taunt to stop the Amoonguss. Glacial Lance just has ability to sweep, but I did want to feature that, hey, you could go Terra Grass. I don't really love it here. Just, you don't need to get around to redirection because, you know, Glacial Lance is crazy. It would really just be for Spore, but I wanted to showcase that. And once again, guys, we've been over it. This spread is disgusting. There's nothing to say about it. Once again, you could play around for very specific calcs, but just if you're going to go grab a Calyrex-Ice and you're going to put it in your builder, just do this until you realize that, ooh, maybe I can live that, right? I would by far start with this. This is where I would start with Calyrex, but it would definitely be set 1 with that Trick Room, with the min speed. This is where I would go. I would just force that Trick Room onto the field, get the Calyrex-Ice, going for the Glacial Lances, and it feels really, really strong. Set 3 is kind of one of those wild card ones. I'm going to be honest, I don't think it's very good in this format, but you can probably prank a couple people with it. And this is the Iron Defense Body Press Leftovers Calyrex. Now, this was a thing a little bit in Sword and Shield where people would kind of not be expecting to get pranked like this, and Iron Defense Body Press would go up and you just kind of cry. But with open team sheets now, I think this gets seen before it's actually done. Not that it would necessarily be bad, because I think it's still kind of like a matchup check, right? This will win the mirror if you play another Calyrex. This will beat the Groudons. This will beat the Zacians if you get the Trick Room up and the Iron Defense up first. It is a very strong option, right? It does prank a lot of people, and there are a lot of teams that do struggle to actually break an Iron Defense Body Press Mon. And why not have an Iron Defense Body Press Mon that can also potentially just click Glacial Lance for 165 base attack when I wanted to, right? Like, it still feels incredibly strong. I don't love the spread. I think the other two are far more consistent. But, I mean, if you wanted to run IDBP, you could. Now, what I am going to say is right now, since we're limited to 1 restricted, I don't think you want to waste your restricted slot on Iron Defense Body Press Mon. In a future regulation, when they inevitably open up the restricteds to be 2 restricteds per team, I could easily see this set becoming a little bit more popular. But right now, I wouldn't really worry too much about it, but it is something that could exist. It is something you could use if you wanted to. Terra Water is another cool, very good defensive typing for this Calyrex. Once again, resisting the steel, resisting the fire type attacks. Has a little less weaknesses than the fire, but you don't get the added benefit of not being burned. And being burned is a problem for Calyrex, but not too bad of a problem for Calyrex. You can overcome that, right? So Terra Water, pretty good. This is something you can do, but once again, you can feature Terra Water over here on set 1, and it will still feel just as good. This Pokemon is broken, right? There's nothing to talk about on the spreads. It's just really, really strong. We've gone over pretty much everything. The concept with Calyrex, get Trick Room, Glacial Lance. That is what you are doing. It's very similar to the Calyrex Shadow, where you're just going Astral Barrage or get a setup and an Astral Barrage or an Expanding Force. Very similar. Here you're going into Trick Room and you're spreading massive damage, right? You are just absolutely spreading the massive damage. This spread is where I would start. And it's just so good, so consistent. There's not else for me to say. There's actually going to be a little bit of a shorter guide just because the spread is so consistent. It's so strong. I don't have other sets to really feature, right? This is what you're running with Calyrex. This is what you are doing with the Calyrex. It is a very strong option. It is a very good option. And it is really going to be strong as Regulation G progresses. I wouldn't even be surprised if this Pokemon was winning regionals consistently. This is going to be a Pokemon that's going to win regionals consistently. This is how you use it, in my opinion. This is by far the best item for it in that clear amulet. And with that, guys, if you are enjoying these types of guides, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help our channel, and of course, I really do appreciate it. But with that, thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all in a future video.